Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode a day. Today I want to talk about something that's been happening to me recently, or happened to me, fingers crossed, because you may have noticed that an episode a day had kind of abruptly stopped for a couple of days. And the reason for that is something that I discovered that I didn't know existed, that is rather unpleasant to learn does. Subconscious panic attacks. If you're following me on Twitter for any amount of time in the last, I would say 64 hours, you would know that at one point I was struggling to get some sleep, and then I posted a Twitter post about, maybe it's allergies, right? And I was going to go off and get some antihistamines. Excuse me while I take a gulp of water. It's very hot here in New Zealand at the moment. But no, in actual fact, it ends up as panic. Panicking while asleep. So what was happening was that I've had a very stressful time recently, and as you may know, I had a period there where I had some major panic going on, and towards the end of 2018 I was being very inconsistent with videos, and then right at the end I just went on a hiatus, and that was really good for me. And then came back, and then immediately had a week where I didn't produce anything. But that's what an episode a day is about, is getting back into the swing of things. But the problem was that with these subconscious panic attacks, what would happen is that I would fall asleep. So this was night, probably about 10 p.m, and I would fall asleep, and I would be immediately thrown awake by a flush of adrenaline. My eyes would spring open, and I would have this really uncomfortable flash of adrenaline run down my body. Anybody who experiences panic or anxiety attacks probably know what that feels like. But if you are unfamiliar with those things, the closest thing I think I can get to explaining it is if you've ever looked down off something and you've just had this rush go through your body of dread, like, oh god, and then you've moved away from the edge of the very tall thing. Or a dog has barked at you, and you were just minding your own business. And instead of just that jump scare feeling, it was more of like it was a jump scare followed by a more like bodily response in terms of this like feeling of energy coursing through your body, because I mean that's literally what it is. It's all your nerves firing to get you ready to run or fight. It's the fight or flight response when adrenaline hits your body so hard like that. So yes, I was being thrown awake by adrenaline responses, by fight or flight responses, and so this is 10 p.m. One night, and I wasn't able to sleep, and I kept not being able to sleep, and then around about, I would say, noon the next day, I'm exhausted, but my mother comes and takes me shopping to get some good food and make sure that I have those things with me, so that maybe that can allay some of the fears, and because at this stage I'm not sure what's going on. I haven't cottoned on to it being panic, and I've not even cottoned on to maybe it was allergies. It's just this thing that was happening which was scaring me, and keeping me awake and sleep deprived. And so we went shopping, and I came back from shopping, and I immediately started feeling ill while I was shopping. because I'm going on over 24 hours without sleep. And this isn't like, because a lot of people, when they say they've gone 24 hours without sleep, they mean they've got an hour here or there, or like a half-hour nap somewhere. But no, this is literally 24 hours without sleep. And I'm walking around the shopping mall and I'm sweating bullets, because it's so much work just to walk around a supermarket, because by this point I'm just so tired that my body is refusing to cooperate. But I ended up getting the stuff and getting home, and then by the time I got home, I felt really nauseous, and I immediately needed to sit down. It doesn't help that it's summer here in New Zealand, and because of how exhausted I wasn't really feeling the temperature, so to say. Like, it wasn't on the tippy top of my mind, so I wasn't even really aware of the fact that I was overheating, and my mother had to tell me to take my damn hoodie off. Because I was like, oh, right, yes, that doesn't help. And then she departed and left me to my devices. And then, so I continued through the day trying to get to sleep as soon as I got home, because I'm bone tired, I'm feeling ready to sleep, and it just continues. I tried to eat some food. I had a little bit of fruit. My appetite was completely gone. The one-track mind was on sleep, so I was trying to sleep as best as I could. But this panic stuff was just happening over and over and over, and I was only getting a few minutes of sleep at a time. You know, like literally, like, you know, between 2 and 10 minutes. And I discovered this because, me being the curious person that I am, I decided, well, if I'm waking up this frequently, maybe I'm doing something in my sleep that's waking me up. So I started the voice recorder on my phone and just left that running while I slept. And it picked up nothing. I don't even really snore. So it wasn't anything that I was doing, and that's, at that point I should have realized it's panic, and just accepted that it's panicked and worked on that being panic, and tried to like calm myself and stuff before trying to sleep again, get up, do some stuff, whatever. But I didn't, and I let it really get to me. And then it was about 3 a.m. That following, the morning following the day that I went shopping, following the night that it started. And at that point I'm just feeling so ill and so overwhelmed that I'm starting to think this cannot be panic. This has gone on too long and it's too specific. It cannot possibly be panic. Something is wrong with me. And I end up calling an ambulance and go to the hospital. And obviously through triage, they didn't think I was in as much danger as I thought I was in. Although I felt crappy, and I mean really bad, I was ready to lay on a dirty waiting room floor made of linoleum that people were constantly coming in and out of. I didn't. I managed to stay sitting. But, even though I felt that crappy, and that nauseous and that dizzy and that terrible, triage obviously had a better idea than I did, and thank God they did, because it really kind of put things into perspective. They were very busy, very, very busy, because it was Saturday also, and this is the hospital in the city, and on a Saturday stupid people do stupid things, so they were over populated, and they didn't have any spare beds or anything that I could lay on while I waited for a doctor to see me. So I ended up waiting in the waiting room for 5 hours, waiting to be seen by a doctor. So I arrived at the emergency room at, I want to say 5 a.m. and waited there until 10 30 roundabout before they actually started shuffling me around and doing things with me. And that's when I described everything that was going on with the doctor, and the doctor was basically like, look, you are clearly dealing with panic. It doesn't sound like you've got obstructive sleep apnea, which was the thing that was worrying me, which is why I started recording myself, because I thought something like that might be happening. It wasn't. And we're going to give you some sleeping aids, and hopefully you can get to sleep. Now, I can't take proper, like, knock you out sleeping pills, because unfortunately I have a very bad habit with my anxiety of fear of losing control, which I guess connects a lot to the whole health thing, because when your health is poor, it kind of feels like you're losing control. You're losing control of yourself, right, when you're sick. So I ended up talking to this doctor, and they gave me some sleep aids. They gave me some drowsy antihistamines and some melatonin, and a few really emergency Zopiclone, which I fortunately didn't need to use, so good story there. And sent me on my way. I ended up getting home, taking the antihistamines and the melatonin, one of each, and ended up sleeping for 14 hours. So yes, I was very tired. Well, actually, that's wrong. It was 2 sleeps with an hour break in between, because I got up to have some food, say hi to my flatmates, and then go back to bed. So yeah, and then I woke up at 5 a.m. and immediately went and played D&D with Mischief of Mice, and a few other friends, Callisto and Lissa, and that was fun. So it's a good ending, getting up after 14 hours, but boy was it scary. And I think what I'm really having this conversation, this an episode a day about, is that it's been an interesting challenge, because if you consider my path through anxiety, and I don't know whether I've told the timeline of my anxiety before, but here it is. I went a couple of months, no, way more than a couple of months, must have been more like 6 months, without a proper diagnosis when I started first experiencing panic attacks and anxiety attacks. And it wasn't until I was just so at wit's end and completely exhausted at one point that I ended up going to a university doctor, because my family GP at the time just kept on checking my blood pressure and bloods, and they always came back fine, and checking my pulse, and that was always fine, but they never thought to think about anxiety, or that I might be experiencing anxiety or panic. So I ended up going to this university doctor instead, because I was going to university at the time, and they immediately recognized the signs, go figure, being a university doctor, that I was experiencing anxiety and panic. So they trotted me up to the counsellor at the time, and got me an immediate booking, like then and there, literally, with the doctor in tow, sitting with me in the counsellor's office. And the counsellor talked to me about panic disorder and anxiety disorder. And then after that meeting, at this point I'm still too tired to really feel things, but then after this meeting and being given a script for some immediate anxiety relief, I went and laid in the grass that was outside the clinic and under a bush. It was one of those bushes that has a very short trunk, so I wasn't literally just in the trees. I was just laying under the bush in the shade, because it was another hot day like this, actually, and cried really hard about the whole situation, because I'd finally got some answers So they were good tears, but they were scared tears still, but they were good tears because I finally had these answers about what was going on and stuff like that. And so Hugh, I don't know how many at this point, but several years, probably a decade of therapy and treatment. And by the end of this point, I've quit work. I'm no longer at work, and so I was doing university and work at the same time. So I've quit work, but I am feeling really good. And this probably would have been the end of 2017, start of 2018, and I am feeling. No, I'm missing a section. It's a few years still at university. And I'm still taking the medication and still going to work. But I'm living somewhere else than where I was living when this all first started. And then at some point during that, I ended up having a different scenario where I felt super ill and super sick. And I felt like I had cotton wool in my head all the time, which was a very bizarre feeling, but it's attached with anxiety because it's an anxiety symptom looking back on it. But at the time it felt very much not like an anxiety symptom, so it was a new experience for me. And so I ended up leaving my apartment that I was in at that point and ended up living with my parents again. So how old was I now? I was probably like 24, 25. I ended up living with my parents again for a year, so 26, before I started to feel any better. When I first went to their place, when this first started happening, this section, I just spent every day laying on the couch wondering when I was going to die. Bluntly. That's what I did. And then my parents got a puppy. And while it was their puppy, and it was the, they had never had any intention of getting the puppy for me. The puppy was for themselves. The puppy ended up being actually the most amazing thing to happen to me in my entire life at that stage, because rather than laying on the couch all day, the puppy was around and my parents were at work, so I was the only one that was around to take care of puppy and entertain puppy. And so me and puppy had a really, really strong bond. And I would take puppy for walks, and I would feed puppy, and I would pick up puppy's poop, and that whole thing of nurturing another animal other than yourself just kind of gave me that routine I needed to snap out of the malaise that I was in about the fact that I really truly thought I was gonna die. Because every day was just, from waking to sleeping, was this anxious feeling, like heightened anxiety. Not quite to the point of panic, although I still was experiencing panic attacks here and there, but it was just all day maximum anxiety. Just jittery, had this kind of fluttery feeling in my chest. My heart was fine, it was just the fact that my nerves were going, right? Feeling weak because, again, when your nerves are all shaky, you don't have fine motor control, so it can feel like you're really weak. But puppy was amazing, and then I also started going to therapy again and getting that sorted out through them, and therapy is really constructive. This is why I'm such a massive advocate for therapy, because while puppy was amazing for me, therapy is really what allayed my fears and got me on track with giving me the tools in order to take care of my anxiety. So that was the last critical point of anxiety in my life, and then now we can go to the end of 2017, start of 2018, And I just start being more anxious on the regular. I think what it was then was that I was missing too many episodes, and my structure was out of whack, and my consistency with videos was poor. So I was constantly worrying that I was betraying or not fulfilling my end of the bargain to the people who were helping me, right? So by being patrons and by watching my channel, and I was constantly worried about losing patrons and losing subs, and not really healthy. And that continued through 2018 and 2017, that heightened sense of dread. And then towards the end of 2018, I've started doing things. I'm catching up on a lot of health issues that I've had in my life. And that has meant going to the hospital a bunch in order to have certain tests done and organise certain things. And at one stage there was, without going into details, one particularly invasive surgery, one particularly invasive examination with a lot of people in the room where I was butt naked, and that was a harrowing experience. Traumatic. I will go there and say it was traumatic, because basically after I got home that same day, and everything had kind of calmed down, and that let the events of the day hit me, it really rocked me, and I had this massive panic attack on that day. And that was around bedtime. And that was the start of this current episode that I've been having. So after that, I started having panic attacks every night at around about the same time, because of fear of fear, right? Which is something which a lot of people with anxiety and panic deal with. And I wasn't controlling very well, because I was letting things get to me, and I was doing a lot of negative self-talk and not practicing positive self-talk and all sorts of other things. So that was really getting to me, and I was having panic attacks every night. And when you're exhausted from panic attacks and stuff, it makes it even harder to kind of stick to the tools and things that actually help you get free of panic in the first place. And that's when I had my hiatus. And then I came back because I had 5 days in a row, I think, of really good sleep, without a panic attack happening at night. And then I announced, hey, I'm coming back. Now, I don't know whether this is connected. I don't think it was, but I can't speak for my subconscious. Because after the announcement, I ended up having a panic attack at night again. And wasn't able to sleep, and, well, you know, after the panic attack I was able to sleep, but panic attacks take a lot out of you. And then since then, it's been kind of spotty whether I've been able to get good sleep or whether I have a panic attack at night. And that leads us to the last 2 days about this whole panic attacks while asleep thing. Something happened. I don't know what, because nothing particularly stressful happened around the time that this started, where I started having these, I don't know, nocturnal panic attacks, and went 48 hours without sleep. So that's fun, and I'm here talking to you guys. I'm gonna upload this after I've had my 14 hours of sleep, after I've had a full day without any incident, and now it's 7 PM, and we'll see how it goes. I will say I'm a little bit nervous, and that's not a good thing, because I know there's no reason to be nervous, but I am about sleep tonight. So we'll see how it goes, but hopefully nothing happens, and I can calm myself if I need to. And I've also got some emergency medication now, because I've talked to my doctor, and so I have some emergency anti-anxiety medication, so I can pop one of those if sleep isn't coming easy enough. But yeah, that's a hell of a episode a day to come back to, I know. But this is what an episode a day is about. It's about me just recording every day that I can. I'll say every day that I can, because obviously I couldn't the last couple of days. That would have been silly for me to try and do that. But yeah, episode a day. Here's my thoughts. So thank you all for listening. I hope this was a little bit educational about me and about panic. And hopefully it gives you some kind of something to chew on. If you ever start experiencing something scary like that, you can think back and say, no, that was something that Rosie was experiencing. It's not really happening. I can be calm. So hopefully I'm giving you some ammunition against anxiety. Anyway, guys, thank you all, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.